Marco Polo was one of the most ambitious stories in early Doctor Who's history. From extensive rewrites to attempting to fit the entire Gobi Desert into half a studio, Marco Polo is a triumph of limitations. Yet, since the serial has been wiped from the archive and cannot be viewed, the story remains as a mystery. This is the story of Marco Polo. Atop the Himalayas, the roof of the world, stands a lifeless TARDIS. The Doctor and his fellow travellers are stranded.
Even if I do find the fault, I don't suppose I shall be able to repair it before it gets dark, and then we shall all freeze to death!
And place their trust within a Venetian traveller known as Marco Polo, who has his own plans for the Doctor's flying caravan. This is the beginning of a 7-part serial which takes the TARDIS team across Cathay, an alternate European historical name for China. But how did this story come to be? John Lucarotti was an Englishman who moved to Canada in the 1950s and worked as a scriptwriter for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, for CBC Radio and for television also. Lucarotti had written an 18-part serial about Marco Polo. The series was titled The Three Journeys of Marco Polo. It was initially broadcast from October 1955 to January 1956. Whilst he was working at the CBC, he met Sydney Newman, who would later become one of the creators of Doctor Who. When looking for contributions to Doctor Who, Newman suggested Lucarotti as a potential writer for the series. On Tuesday the 9th of July 1963, Lucarotti was commissioned to write a 7-part Doctor Who serial titled Journey to Cathay, based on his extensive research on Marco Polo. Director Waris Hussein, who had also directed An Unearthly Child, was slated to direct this serial. Doctor Who in the 1960s was generally shot on videotape in studio, and shot as if it were live. In some serials, such as Marco Polo, there were certain shots that required more time to achieve. Therefore, these moments will be pre-recorded and slotted into the episodes when needed. Marco Polo had 5 days of shooting film inserts, from Monday the 13th of January to the end of the week, on Stage B of Ealing Studios. Shots that were completed were desert panoramas, a sandstorm, and a potentially dangerous shot of bamboo sticks exploding for episode 5. Tuesday the 14th was a day dedicated to capturing elements for the animated map. The map was used to show the journey across Cathay and was superimposed over footage of wagons moving throughout the desert landscape. Wednesday consisted of filming with actors Mark Eden and Darren Nesbitt, who portrayed Marco Polo and the warlord Tagana, respectively. They recorded establishing shots in the desert and a sword fight scene from the final episode. The dramatic high-angle TARDIS dematerialization shot was taken on that day also, which thankfully survives as a telesnap. Throughout the week, Marco Polo's narration for the story was recorded. This acted as a framing device to educate the viewers of the journey and the passage of time throughout the story. Originally, the narrator would change from Marco to the Doctor to Barbara, etc. To make it simpler for actor availability, they decided upon just having one narrator. Marco was chosen, and his monologues were explained as diary entries, which had a nicer artistic touch than character inner monologues. When the TARDIS malfunctions, Marco Polo extends the Doctor and his friends the hand of friendship. Yet, when Marco discovers the power of the TARDIS, he decides to present it as a gift to Kublai Khan to gain his freedom to return home.
A caravan that flies! Do you imagine what this will mean to the Khan? My mind is made up. Your caravan goes with me to Kublai Khan.
The first episode, The Roof of the World, was recorded on Friday the 31st of January 1964 in Lime Grove Studio D. Studio D was notoriously small, and the extensive sets required for a story such as Marco Polo made it quite difficult. This episode was the first time they used a photo cutout of the TARDIS instead of moving the heavy prop from set to set during recording. The cardboard cutout was used at the way station, and sadly, no telesnaps capture its appearance, but would be seen out of frame to the right of this shot. Ian Chesterton was supposed to introduce the travellers to Marco Polo, yet it was changed to make the Doctor have this introduction in order to continue the recurring gag of the Doctor misremembering Chatterton's name.
Is your name Marco Polo?
It is, my lady, and may I ask who you are?
Oh, we're travellers, yes. That's my grandchild, Susan, and that's Miss Wright, and that's Charlton.
Chesterton.
The travellers join Marco Polo's caravan, voyaging towards Kublai Khan's court, when they are struck by a sandstorm. Tigana, a warlord who is plotting to kill the Khan, sabotages the water supply of the caravan.
Here's water, Marco Polo. Come for it.
The second episode, The Singing Sands, was recorded on Friday the 7th of February 1964 in Lime Grove Studio D. Sadly, William Hartnell was quite ill during the rehearsal period of episode 2 and did not take part in rehearsals. Because of his illness, many scenes within this story were changed. In the original camera script, the Doctor has a lot more to do, but now lines were changed around and given to other characters. In the broadcasted episode, the Doctor grumpily sleeps throughout the sandstorm and only joins in the action in the closing moments and shares a few lines. A notable scene between Barbara and Susan was initially between Susan and the Doctor. The Doctor complains about Marco taking the TARDIS away from him and how hopeless it made him feel. In the edited scene though, rewritten by David Whittaker, the series' first script editor, changed it to be Susan and Barbara.
We'll get the TARDIS back, Susan. Yes, at Kublai Khan's court when it's too late. We should be up there, another time, another galaxy.
To achieve the visual look of a sandstorm without putting the crew and the equipment in danger, the effect was achieved by using a wind machine and using a TV monitor that's speckled, a sort of visual grain effect. Waris Hussein said in an interview with Doctor Who magazine, "That's the sort of innovation we prided ourselves in. It's a miracle that those images convinced, rather than being laughable." Nearly dying of thirst, the Doctor collects water from the TARDIS via condensation. Marco takes away the TARDIS key from the Doctor, and they continue their journey to the deadly cave of 500 Eyes. The third episode, 500 Eyes, was recorded on Friday the 14th of February 1964 in Lime Grove Studio D. Studio space continued to plague the serial, and is especially prevalent when looking at the TARDIS set. The original TARDIS interior was a sprawling set, taking up nearly half of the studio. Yet, since the interior was only going to be featured in one scene, it got cut down into a tiny corner. It only featured the door panel, a wall panel, and a bed/couch. The studio was so small that the bed had to be removed after recording the scene because the camera had to be placed where the bed was. Tigana plots to have the caravan attacked, and as the Doctor finished repairs on his ship, Marco seizes the TARDIS in the Khan's name, and if they try to escape, they will be put to death.
Any resistance to this decree is instantly punishable by death.
You poor, pathetic, stupid savage.
Take them away!
The fourth episode, The Wall of Lies, was recorded on Friday the 21st of February 1964 in Lime Grove Studio D. Unlike the other episodes of this serial, The Wall of Lies was directed by John Crockett. Waris Hussein took a week break, and Crockett took up the work. Telesnaps for this story were commissioned by Waris, and were taken by John Cura. Because episode 4 was not directed by Waris, he did not commission telesnaps to be taken. Therefore, no telesnaps ever existed for The Wall of Lies. On Sunday the 23rd of February, 2 days after recording episode 4, William Russell, who played Ian Chesterton, wrote to his agent to discuss a few complaints about his role within the series. He outlined that he was upset that 2 guest stars got to share the coveted Radio Times cover with William Hartnell instead of the regular cast, and complained of the extensive last-minute script changes. He used the newly added 6-minute scene, The Wall of Lies, as an example, which was only given to him the day before recording. Donald Wilson, who was head of serials at the time, replied to these complaints on the 28th of February and apologised for these incidences. He explained that the Radio Times gets to choose their own cover, and the production team assumed that Radio Times would choose one with the regular cast. But in the end of the day, Radio Times got the final say. He also apologised for the change in scripts and promised that this wouldn't happen in future now that the show had officially been agreed for a further 52-week run. The travellers continued to Shangtu. Throughout the journey, Susan has become quite close with Ping Cho, who steals the TARDIS key back for her. As they attempt to escape, Susan is stopped by Tagana and fears for her life.
She must have gone to say goodbye to Ping Chu.
What on earth does that child think she's doing? Great Olympus!
The 5th episode, Rider from Shangtu, was recorded on Friday the 28th of February 1964 in Lime Grove Studio D. Unusually for Doctor Who at the time, scene 29, which was set within the TARDIS, was recorded first. This was unusual because Doctor Who at the time was generally shot in chronological order, scene by scene. This was to make it easier for the actors to go from set to set. Ping Cho flees the camp, and Tagana and Ian go to look for her, whilst the other travellers continue on to the Khan's court. The TARDIS has been stolen by one of Tagana's men, and when it is discovered by Ian and Ping Cho, Tagana is not ready to give it up without a fight. The 6th episode, Mighty Kublai Khan, was recorded on Friday the 6th of March 1964 in Lime Grove Studio D. There is a scene where Ian confesses to Marco that he is from the future, and in the final camera script, Warris had crossed out large chunks of it. Yet these omitted lines appeared in the final broadcast.
The past and the future?
Yes. Oh, I know it's difficult to believe, but it's the truth.
On my travels to Cathay, I have come to believe many things which I previously doubted.
It is unsure if it was reinstated due to the episode running short, or due to protests by William Russell and Mark Eden. Ian and Ping Cho are rescued by Ling Tao and are escorted to the Khan's court, along with Tagana and the TARDIS. Tagana's plan to assassinate the Khan is coming together as the TARDIS travellers attempt to make their escape. The 7th episode, Assassin at Peking, was recorded on Friday the 13th of March 1964 in Lime Grove Studio D. Recording of the final episode was met with many delays. When attempting to transport a camera dolly, the elevator broke down. After the elevator was quickly repaired, a studio fireman cited concerns over equipment in the fire exits and wouldn't let rehearsals continue until the problem was fixed. On top of this, the episode had the most recording breaks of the entire serial, making a total of 9. This was quite unusual at the time, but it was necessary to let the cast move from set to set. The serial ends with a rather poetic narration by Marco.
I wonder where they are now. The past or the future?
Originally, there was an entire scene where the team discussed their lament on not saying goodbye to Marco, and Barbara tells the travellers of Marco Polo's fate. The doctor who previously took Marco's diary says, "Of course, the book admits one journey. He lost his notes, I suppose." The doctor reads the diary. "Oh, is that what he thought of me? Well, of all the cheek." The travellers laugh as the doctor looks annoyed. The serial reached its peak audience figures at 10.4 million viewers. Marco Polo is a product of its time. It depicts some ethnic prejudices, mainly in the use of yellowface. This was wrong then, and it is wrong now. To ignore that it occurred would be acting as if these prejudices never existed, when they clearly did. As a viewer and an adult, you can enjoy something and even say that Marco Polo is your favourite serial, while simultaneously recognising and condemning actions taken within it. Please take a moment to really think about this. You can still enjoy something, such as Marco Polo, while simultaneously recognising and condemning actions taken within it. This is a serious adult approach. Sadly, this story does not exist in the BBC's archive due to routine junking, but that doesn't mean it's completely lost forever. So, what is left of Marco Polo? We have the original audio that was recorded by two fans on broadcast. These were recorded by David Holman and James Russell. Waris Hussein kept the telesnaps, so we have a visual glimpse of 6 out of 7 episodes. We also have 8 off-screen photos that were taken by an unknown Australian fan for episodes 6 and 7. You can experience the story via an audio release narrated by William Russell, a novelisation by John Luca Roddy himself, or by fan-made reconstructions by Loose Cannon. As of the making of this video, no official animation has been announced. If you'd like to learn more about missing episodes, watch my documentary series on them here. So, what is your favourite way of experiencing this story? Or have you not experienced it yet? Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Josh Nair's YouTube channel.